We now move forward to soul food, the gastrointestinal tract as a topic. This is going to be a panel discussion with our guest, with our host Anu Mehta, Jasmine and Dr. Kwesi, Robert Waghmare and Jyoti Lalwani. They will discuss the emotional conflicts of the organs connected with the gastrointestinal tract, such as the esophagus, small intestines, colon, stomach, pancreas, and liver, with some case studies. Please welcome our guest for the discussion today. We also welcome Dr. Badal, please. Can we have you all on stage?
We had the journey to the sun. We are now going to the place where we are incorporating, digesting, and eating what the sun is producing. So we are going into what we call the gastrointestinal tract. That is a complex system of our body. It's very important because that's where we get the energy. So the energy of the sun goes in the fruits or in the animals, those who eat meat, and we are eating the sun indirectly. So, Anu, eating is very, very important in India. Food.
Yes, Dr. Kwesi, eating is extremely important everywhere, but it's a part of hospitality and part of our culture. If you come home, I have to ask you at least a glass of water. That's how we begin. Will you have a glass of water? And it doesn't mean we ask, we actually get it. Because if you're asking, it means you aren't going to give. But if you're giving, that means you really want to give.
So when this is deep-rooted in the Indian culture, what about conflicts connected to the gastrointestinal tract?
So can you imagine the first conflict would be, as I said, in our culture, if somebody comes home, the first thing we offer is, will you have a glass of water? And we don't ask, we get it for you. And at the same time, if you didn't get it, what would it mean? Disrespect? You're not loved? You're not belonging to a status? Or you're not belonging to a part? Or it just completely means you are not belonging. It's almost like that. So you can be either respected or disrespected because I gave you something to eat or I didn't give you something to eat. And I would go a little further and say, I have to be careful what I'm offering in food. If I go and give someone, and there are a lot of people in my country who do not believe in eating meat, animal, they do not believe, they just believe in having vegan food or just the maybe just the plant food. And if I was to offer, or even some cults or some sectors of religion, they do not believe in having garlic, anything that's growing under the earth. If I have to be careful when I'm extending my hospitality, I have to be knowing the psyche of the person. And if I don't know what I'm offering him, I may be still giving him food to eat, but not what he wants. So it's really essential not only just to read the person, but also to give them what they really want.
Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
I would like to ask Dr. Badal from Germany, who's a GP, about his experience. How often do you have clients with disorder of the gastrointestinal tract? And what is your understanding from MetaHealth, what is connected to it? You can say it in German.
Okay. Ich denke, wir haben etwa 40% unserer Patienten in der Praxis, die mit Gastrointestinalproblemen kommen.
So Dr. Badal says about 40% of the patients he sees in his clinic have got a disorder of the gastrointestinal tract.
Und die meisten haben keine Ahnung, warum.
And most of them don't have a clue why they have it.
Ich finde das Beispiel von Stefan so toll. Wir sind alle im Winterschlaf in dieser Beziehung.
Sind alle?
Im Winterschlaf.
And he likes what Stefan said, that we are all sleeping, we are not awake.
Interessant ist, dass die meisten kommen und sagen, ich muss was Falsches gegessen haben. Und sie denken immer an normales Essen.
So it's very interesting that most of them, of the clients, patients who have gastrointestinal disorders, they believe that I have been eating something wrong, something terrible.
Und unsere traditionelle Medizin, die meint, die kann eigentlich nur etwa 5 bis 10% von Ursachen nachweisen, die auch wirklich auf die Ernährung, die wir haben, zurückzuführen sind.
And Bada says that conventional medicine can only explain 5 to 10% of the causes of gastrointestinal disorders, which have to do with wrong nutrition.
Ich habe da einen interessanten Fall aus meiner Praxis.
So now he wants to share a case of his clinic.
Ein Ehepaar kam am Montag in die Praxis und beide hatten Durchfall.
So a married couple came to his clinic on Monday and both of them were suffering from diarrhea.
Sie haben mir erzählt, sie waren am Freitagabend bei einem chinesischen Restaurant. Das Essen war sehr gut, aber sie haben irgendein Gewürz noch drin gehabt. Das war besonders gut, aber nur dieses Gewürz haben sie nicht gekannt. Und das muss die Ursache des Durchfalls jetzt sein.
So they went to a Chinese restaurant, not an Indian restaurant, and it was very tasty, the food, but they ate, it was Friday where they went to the restaurant, and the food was very nice, but there was some spice they didn't know, and that's why they think that this spice they ate, even though it was tasty and they didn't know it, that must be the cause why they have got diarrhea.
Gut, dann musste ich natürlich innerlich lächeln.
And of course he knew what it was about, so he just was smiling.
Ich habe nur gefragt, wo war 2, 3 Tage vorher ein Stress miteinander? Und dann haben sie sich angeguckt und haben sie mich gefragt, woher ich das wüsste.
So he was just smiling and he just asked them, 2 to 3 days before you went to eat, what was the struggle, the conflict that you had in between the two of you was about? They just looked at each other and asked him, where do you know this about?
Ja, und dann haben sie mir erzählt, es war ein sehr heftiger Streit. Und dann haben sie beschlossen, am Freitagabend zum Versöhnungsessen zu gehen.
So he said they said that it was a very, very intensive conflict they had, and then they could solve it, and then to reconcile, they went out to have dinner on Friday.
Ja, und das erklärt natürlich jetzt alles.
And that explains everything.
Und das, was wir alle wissen, so wie wir denken und fühlen, so reagiert unser Körper.
And those who know the MetaHealth Principles, they know that how we feel and how we think, our mindset, our body is reacting to that.
Wir haben eine Formulierung in Deutschland, das heißt, wie einen Stein im Bauch fühlen. Ne?
And in German we've got a saying, it means like feeling like a stone in the stomach.
Und nun wissen wir, jeder weiß es, wenn ich eine normale Nahrung esse, die mir nicht gut tut, was ich sofort merke, was macht der Körper?
So, and he says that if I eat something that my body can't tolerate, everybody knows how the body is going to react.
Wir bekommen Krämpfe, wir bekommen Übelkeit und wir bilden sehr viel Flüssigkeit, sodass wir in unseren Durchfall oder Erbrechen kriegen. Ne?
So the body reacts, we produce a lot of saliva, we've got crumbs in the stomach, in the intestine, so that either we vomit it out or we get diarrhea to get rid of what is not good for us.
Und das kann so heftig sein, dass viele meinen, so etwas Schlimmes haben sie noch nie erlebt.
And it can be so severe that people really say they've never experienced something like that.
Und dieses passiert genauso mit diesem Stein, also mit diesen emotionalen Brocken. Das muss genauso aus dem Körper rausgebracht werden wie anderes Essen.
And this stone can also be an emotional chunk that is emotional toxicity for us, and we also have to get rid of that.
Ja, okay. Das sind immer die meisten dieser Patienten, die mit Darmproblemen kommen, haben diese emotionalen Probleme.
And he said, and most of the clients he sees who've got a gastrointestinal disorder, they've got these emotional problems. Thank you very much, Dr. Bada. So, Rob, you are living in the UK, and the UK is not known for the best food in the world. So, what is your experience?
That's not that bad. It depends. It depends where you eat and what you buy. Some of the stores are good, and some of the restaurants are good.
So, you are seeing.
In Winterschlaf.
What's that?
You're in a winter sleep, you say, when you believe that. So, you are also seeing a lot of clients.
Yeah.
So, what is your experience
everybody has gastrointestinal issues.
So everybody has got gastrointestinal
Everybody.
issues.
From,
Everybody.
From a metakinetics perspective, everyone scans because you can't separate the digestive system from other areas of brain processing. So if you think about on the basic level, you've got three functions. You've got ingestion, which is like taking something in. You've got assimilation, which is incorporation. And you've got elimination. So those are the three main functions. So any conflict or program that you have not resolved is stuck, which means part of you subconsciously is ruminating. Now, if you look at the position of the midbrain, which is related to the smooth muscle of the intestinal system, it sits directly underneath the thalamus. And the thalamus is the part of the brain which is involved with evaluation. So at an unconscious level, the conflicts that we haven't yet solved, we're ruminating and going over. And the reason I know that is when I do clearing work with people, they always get diarrhea. Always, without exception. And therefore, the digestive system has to be intimately involved with every conflict.
Okay, so we can just ask, we can just make a test. So who here in the room has ever had problems with the gastrointestinal tract? Please raise your hand. Okay. Yeah. So those of you who know MetaHealth, you can find out, or you already know, what is connected to it. So it's very interesting what Rob is saying, that because of the function of the gastrointestinal tract, and we've got all functions of the physiology in this system, it's connected to any kind of conflict. Because when we feel something is stuck, is not evolving, it's linked to our gastrointestinal tract, and when we solve something, then we are going to react on that level. How intensive depends also how intense the emotion and the belief is.
And I also have personal experience. I remember coming to Germany in 2008.
That was the second MetaHealth conference in Germany.
No, I think
the first.
I think this was a specialist training in brain relay diagnostics with Anton.
Oh, that was, yes,
Yeah.
in... Okay.
And Anton had my CT scan on the
screen?
On the screen, and then he goes, flatulence? In front of 100 people. And I was like, yes. And so my digestive system going back to then was not good. I had a lot of dysbiosis, a lot of problems with digestion, constipation. And then in 2013, Anton gave me a very strong compliment about my understanding of MetaHealth. So I was doing some diagnosis on your under vitiligo, yeah. And it was like approval from my father, which has been a big conflict for me throughout my entire life. And then I had 2 weeks of reorganization of my digestive system with diarrhea for 2 weeks. And since then, my digestive system hasn't been better in my entire life. So it's improved dramatically. I had a terrible pain, probably blood as well, and like 2 weeks of diarrhea after a conflict resolution. And so I believe every time I have a big resolution, and my experience is telling me this is true, I get diarrhea every time. So warn them, It's likely they're going to be pooping, and it's fine. It's good.
I remember we came together from London, and Rob was a bit, not scared, but he was a bit, how is it going to be going back to India with the family history? Are things going to be resolved? Am I going to sit the whole time on the toilet in the plane? So he was fine, and I was the one who was running to the toilet. So thank you very much, Rob. So from the point of view of a nutritionist, what is your experience?
All right. Considering the percentage of patients that we're seeing in my clinic, I think 7 on 10 would be gastrointestinal cases. And out of these 7 on 10, at least 4 to 5 would be having something common like hyperacidity and constipation or mild constipation versus the diarrhea. The diarrhea is not so often. I guess they go to a doctor and not a dietitian then. But a constipation is where they would land up here. So just a little highlight on the acidity part, how we suggest. So there are three things that I would like them to deal with. So the causes I always explain in acidity would be hurry, worry, curry. Hurry would be eating too fast, or maybe in a hurry and skipping meals. So the regularity of meals is skipped. And as you know, Bombay life, how we all run around everywhere. In fact, we've done a study in schools, and around 60 to 65% of children go to school without eating breakfast because they have no time.
Can't digest, they can't digest the chunk, the information that is coming to them that we are working on. So they came with no nauseous feeling. It comes up during the session, we work through it, and at the end they are fine. So it's very important to let them know it's okay, it will go. Or during the session, suddenly there is a need to run to the toilet. So my toilet is very busy when I have clients, either for fish out of the water, kidney collecting tubules issue that very often comes up. So it's either releasing at that end or releasing at the other end due to way we perceive the situation we were working on and emotions that we were working on.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So I want to now show you that those of you who are, thank you. So the gastrointestinal tract has got different parts, and I want to show you that you can get all the information, because here we are just sharing our experience. We're not going too much in detail about all the different functions, because that is where you get access when you are a member of IMA. Yeah? So this is the MetaHealth website, and we have got a new intranet that is going to be launched on Sunday, extra for the conference. And we have updated the organ brain directory, and you can have access to all the information. So here you've got the different systems. Yeah? And then you can click like, let's go gastrointestinal, yeah, digestive system. Yeah? And then you first get an explanation what it is, and then you've got the graphical, and then you can go in the different parts. Yeah? So now let's go to the liver and the gallbladder and the pancreas. And you get all the information there. And those of you who haven't done the training yet in MetaHealth, I'm very clear about that. My objective for those who are new here so that they understand their body, their mind, their emotion, they connect with themselves, and that they can share it with other people. That's our objective, that this knowledge is passed, and that everyone should learn that, like Mr. Walter said. Where is he? Yeah? He said everybody should know that. Even at school, children should learn it. So those of you who haven't done the training yet, who are here, I'd like to share now about the pancreas. It also belongs to the digestive system, and yesterday I mentioned Steve Jobs, who passed away with cancer of the pancreas. Yeah? So Anu, did you have clients with cancer of the pancreas here in India? Have you seen some?
Dr. Kwesi, personally, I haven't seen any of them with pancreatic cancer. I haven't met anyone. I'm sure it is huge, but I haven't met anyone.
So let's ask our doctor here about pancreas tumor. Pancreas tumor.
Alle Patienten, die ich gesehen habe, mit Pankreastumor.
So all patients you saw with cancer of the pancreas,
Die haben alle einen sehr tiefen Individualitätskonflikt gehabt.
they all had a deep, deep conflict with their individuality.
In Bezug meistens, also die ich gesehen habe, meistens in Bezug auf ihren Beruf.
And in most cases, it had to do with their work, with their job.
Ne? Wenn sie von ihrem Chef gesagt bekommen, das, was sie tun, das ist nichts. Und wenn sie an diesem Brocken, der ihnen da zugeworfen wird, wenn sie den nicht verdauen können, weil sie meinen, sie sind ja besonders gut gewesen.
So if, for example, they are not being acknowledged by their boss, yeah, and the boss even tells them what you're doing is not good, it's very hard for them to swallow this chunk if they have got a high entitlement about themselves.
Und da es so tief geht, an ihrer Persönlichkeit rüttelt, ist die Heilungsphase, wenigstens in Deutschland, sehr schlecht.
And he said, and because it goes very, very deep in their individuality, it's really shocking them. And when they then react according to the shock, the rate of survival is very, very low.
Wir können das zwar intellektuell erklären, aber die Umsetzung, eine Persönlichkeitsänderung, das schaffen die wenigsten Menschen in Deutschland nicht.
So he's now sharing the experience in Germany. He says, we can intellectually explain from this disease. It's very challenging to transform their personality, and most of them can't do that.
Ich kenne einen Kollegen, der einzigen eigentlich, den ich kenne als Kollege, der es geschafft hat. Er hat sich aber zunächst mal, ist er den Weg der Schulmedizin gegangen, hat sich operieren lassen und dann hat er entdeckt, dass es was anderes gibt, dass es auch noch Gefühle gibt, dass es noch die Seele gibt, und ab diesem Zeitpunkt begann er dann seine Reise in die Emotion und hat es überlebt und macht nun seine eigenen Vorträge.
So he's now sharing a case from a colleague, a medical doctor, who was diagnosed with of the pancreas. And he first went in the treatment in conventional medicine, so he's been operated. And after that, he realized there is more than just the explanation from conventional medicine, that we human beings are just like machines. There's something like emotion, we've got thoughts, and we've got something like spirituality. So he went on that journey, he transformed, he survived, and now he's giving workshops in that context.
Ja. Und in unserer normalen Medizin können wir sowieso nicht erklären, warum es zum Pankreaskrebs kommt.
And conventional medicine can't even explain why people get pancreatic cancer.
Ich glaube, sonst gibt es nichts dazu zu sagen.
Thank you very much.
The word pancreas, if you break it, P stands for power, A-N is like ant, and pancreas, it's like creation. When your power and creation is under question mark, that is when you will get pancreatic cancer.
Just for a moment, Jasmine. Thank you. And those of you who know the story of Steve Jobs, yeah, that he was adopted, that he was the boss of his company, and then they even sacked him as the CEO of the company, and he came back. Even so, he was then successful, maybe the even most successful CEO on the planet. Still, what he experienced, he could not digest it. Jasmine.
I had few clients with pancreatic cancer. For all of them, the common theme was money, and it was anger. And improvements were fantastic, but it's very sensitive category of people, very sensitive health condition, and I can tell you exactly what happened. One client, we started working on MetaHealth Principles and releasing emotional charge and everything. We started working on that primarily because his wife wanted him to feel better because he will die soon. So what really happened, his doctor said that he won't survive. Wife said, please don't tell him. can you give him some chemotherapy so that he has a hope? Otherwise, he will die straight away. So they gave him chemotherapy. We started working together, and he started feeling better and better. So I asked, okay, how long you will be on chemotherapy? And he said, well, my doctor said for good. And I said, well, can't be really for good. You better clarify that with your doctor. And I said, okay, so what's the situation with other people when you go to the hospital? He said, well, not many survive. Usually it's 5 to 6 rounds of chemo and they are gone. And I said, okay, so what's your plan? And he really started feeling better and traveling and feeling great. And he said, but it's what my doctor said. So he managed to survive. He died after 26 chemos. At 20th chemo, he still was in the up kind of condition, going towards improvements. And then his body was really having a lot of toxicity that couldn't
cope with it.
Cope with that, and it dramatically started going down. So the main thing that he didn't want to look into is really saying to the doctor that, you know, that's enough. Or I'm not interested, from the position of the fear that system won't take him in if there is a need for it. So he even didn't want to work on it, on that kind of fear. He was just stuck in that position, and unfortunately, despite of all great work, and he had a very good quality of life, what is really good, well, if we can say it's good, the only pain that he had was last 3 days of his life. So he was coping really well, and it was actually quite humorous. He said, they're all coming, doctors are coming, and they all whisper, he had so many. So they can't believe, they couldn't believe how many chemotherapies he was able to cope with, and he was almost like a proud how strong he is, but at the end it cost him his life. And it was about money. The other client, again, about money, not having enough money, and was sent home, hooked to the hospice. And again, I was just called to help her cope with her fear of dying and fear of, you know, suffering and all of that. And within 6 months, she was back to work. So eventually, after 2 years, she didn't die from pancreas cancer, she died from lung cancer. And that is what I want to draw attention to, that people need to monitor themselves and their feelings. And once they had that condition, they are really very volatile in their emotional states, and they can easily get new meanings attached, and new programs can start. So basically, she didn't lose life to pancreas cancer. It's just because of something she read and something that she heard that triggered lung cancer, and she didn't ask for any support or didn't do any work with herself, because she's been accepted, you know, and it's usually what happens with people with cancer, and that really doesn't need to be so. So both of them were able to come out, but we have to be very careful in monitoring ourselves and our emotional compass, our belief compass, our secondary gains, and all of other items that come into it.
Thank you very much, Jasmine. That was very, very important what Jasmine just shared, that we are just teaching it in the trainings. This is the pancreas tumor. Yeah? You always have to look at the client as a whole, complete person. It's not only that one organ where they have detected something. They're all interacting with each other. And it means that even when that might be resolved, other programs, like Jasmine just said, can be triggered through the interaction with the doctors or through interaction in the family. What is about the fear of dying? And then it can go to the lung. So always look at the whole person and really encourage them that they check, monitor themselves what is going on in them. That's very, very important. So thank you very much. I would like to go now to the liver, because the liver is a very, very important organ. And we also have a lot of disorders connected to the liver. So, Rob, do you have experience with clients who have liver issues? Or have you tested on the level of metakinetics something energetic going on the liver before it manifests on the physical level?
I'm trying to think. Yes, I have actually, yes. Both with the ducts and with the parenchyma.
So can you just share what is the difference between the ducts and the parenchyma?
Yes, so the parenchyma is more to do with like anger around one's own survival or survival of the family, and the ducts is more to do with the territory of one's own survival. And I'm trying to remember, I've got a little bit of experience with this. So I think the ducts is to do with territory, and my mother had an experience which was very interesting. Is one of her closest friends, she knew over 50 years. About 15 years ago, she realized that this person was stealing from her.
Stealing?
Stealing.
From her own house?
Yes, taking objects and then taking them to her house and then showing her them, as if to say, look. Yeah? So a kind of kleptomania. And my mother's the sort of person who tries to avoid confrontation at all costs. And so she sat with this anger about her things being taken from her over many years. And then in the last 2 or 3 years, she started to discuss this with me. And I said, well, you need to face the issue and confront it. And she did. She actually said that she could no longer tolerate this person in her life, which I was surprised by, because they were very close. And literally within a few days of her doing that, she immediately got major gallbladder pain. She had to go to hospital, and she was diagnosed with something called... Hello? Hello? Okay. She was diagnosed with something called misery syndrome, which is where there's such a large stone, it blocks the actual duct.
So she went for operation?
No.
What did she do?
Well, I was there. I was consulting with the consultant and asking him lots of questions that he couldn't answer. And I was also asking about post-surgery, about what happens and the condition of the small intestine post-surgery, and he started to get rather hot under the collar. And I did some things with my mum. She doesn't have pain anymore, and her digestion has returned to normal. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I was just realizing once we were speaking, in India we haven't seen so many pancreatic cancers, but liver disorders are abundant, even liver cancers. And when we were talking, when Robert was saying about the survival aspect, coincidentally I just had a flash, because I had a lot of patients of liver cancer or liver non-alcoholic hepatitis and cirrhosis, and coincidentally, they had been there with a lot of trauma associated when there was a partition taking place, India-Pakistan, and they had lived as refugees. Now these people were in the senior citizen group, and when their children settled and started working, that's when they manifested the cancers. I just linked it up this minute, that could also be a possibility when we're talking of survival. I'm sure Anu will be able to.
I mean, this is amazing. It's and when she was talking, my mind goes elsewhere, right? We all think differently. So look at the word liver, L-I-V-E. That's live, R is real. When you stop living in a real way, you start living the life that others want you to live or for existence, that is when you are going to come down with liver cancer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you just said something very important. Conventional medicine says a lot of people get cirrhosis of the liver due to alcohol. And my father is also a medical doctor, and he came to study in Germany, and then he went back to Ghana. And when we once talked, and I did some internship in Ghana, he said he was surprised that he saw so much liver cancer in Ghana because the people hardly drink, because they can't afford it. Yeah? And he's seen more liver cancer in Ghana than in Germany. And the Germans, they love their beer. They're known for that. And then I told him, yeah, this is what meta medicine says about that, and he is open also now for meta medicine. And Dr. Ahmed and I, we plan to go to Ghana and also start meta medicine trainings in Ghana. So that is where we can prove that all the statistics and the explanations that conventional medicine has, they are not correct. Yeah? And the liver, the parenchyma, where it's about storing the energy, the carbohydrates, it's about survival. Yeah? And survival in the so-called non-developing countries, it's every day. Yeah? And what you have just shared about the conflict between Pakistan and India, where they separated, that was pure survival what happened there. Yeah? And just one question, did you also experience that it was not only the ones who experienced it, but also then that their children and the children of their children are also affected with that?
Yes, in fact, one more thing that struck me right now is that, there is a lot of showing of love through food in India. Because that could be because the survival was the issue then. So the parents just made sure that the children need to be well fed. That was most important. So at the same time, when you don't have that food is enough, then that fear has also crept in the second generation, which also could be connected to a lot of gastro issues. So that's another connect that I just got. Thanks.
When she's talking, another connection in our country, especially with Muslim families, and also with Hindu families. I don't want to get Hindu-Muslim thing here. So Ramzan, who's sitting here, his sister had come down with the liver, which is not functioning well. And it's very interesting, she's married at a very, very early age. Somebody who gets married at 15 years of age and actually wants to continue education, but is told because you're a daughter, that's not your premise, and she's brilliant. She's told you're supposed to go, get married, make babies, and that's your job. And I'm sure that is again a migration from one house to another, and yet it's not a comforting place. You get into a starvation because you're supposed to be doing certain functions. You're not supposed to be, how do I put it? You got a person home so that they could take care of your needs. I don't know where love is involved. So I'm like really, when I look at that kid who's so young, and she's really frail and young, and she's got 2 kids, and so responsibilities are far more than any kind of enjoyment that would also then impact your existence, because if I didn't do the responsibility as I'm supposed to do, then it's going to be my existence which is going to get impacted. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So, Jasmina, do you have experience with clients also who have got problems with the gallbladder?
Yes, the client that actually that I was talking about that had pancreas cancer, she had initially a gallbladder issue, but she decided to go for surgery and did not want to do any inner work. And after taking the gallbladder out, she told that she's sorted. And it's when I said, well, you really want to look into what's going on within you. 3 years after that, she was diagnosed with pancreas cancer. It was just another layer and layer, and actually coming at the same sensitivity line, but just on a different organ and slightly different tissue. What I would really love to say is about liver cancer, an importance of our words, especially around children. I had a client, a girl, young girl who came up with liver cancer, and actually what was the conflict is when she heard her uncle losing a job and comments of her auntie, "We won't have even for bread now." And as a child, she took that literally on board, and it's how she developed liver cancer. So it's very important how we talk about certain things, daily things, especially that worries us, in front of our children, because they get affected. And a lot of people ask questions, well, why the poor child would have a cancer? You know, what's their responsibility in that? What's their contribution to that? But we just need to understand how our mind processes everything and to be careful around children.
So thank you very much. That was very important, because what Jasmine just highlighted and illustrated with that case, that a girl hears that the parents are saying that, oh, if this continues like that, we won't have enough to feed ourselves. And she took it literally. And what we give a meaning has an impact on us. And that all arises in language. So it means we really have to be very, very mindful about the language we speak and also about our thoughts. And the meaning is the key. So when Stefan had his wonderful presentation, he said, once then he thought, I'm talking about the mind, but what is the mind? So if you look at any dictionary on Google, you will find out there is no general agreement, no general definition for the mind. It differs between cultures, and even within cultures, there is a lot of different definitions. But what they all have in common is that the mind is a faculty of our being where we process things and give them meaning. That's the most important. And when we understand and learn, like Astrid said, nothing, it is meaningless, then we can let it go. And that's all what is needed, to let this story go that we have created. Like Stefan said, we have created this. We have created our reality. We have created our disease processes because we gave something that was meaningless a meaning. And when we understand that and can let go and come in this state of nothingness, then our body can heal. So we need to be very, very mindful of our language. And now we have to be very, very mindful of time because the time is over. Thank you very much. So all of you, my acknowledgement for sharing about this complex organ system. So thank you very much.
Before starting the session, next session, we want to wish a very, very happy birthday to somebody. I will let Dr. Kwesi wish that. Oh.
Mrs. Kavita Freedom has got her birthday today.
Yay, happy birthday.
To you. Happy birthday to you.
Come on, louder.
Happy birthday, dear Kavita. Happy birthday to you.
Yay. The right question would be, how young are you now?